Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome everyone to our 159th weekly webinar series of AABN. It's gratifying to look around and see so many familiar faces on the monitor. That's a pleasing welcome to what we know is going to be a great webinar. With every passing day, we introduce a wider informed view into the selection process that is driven by global market requirement. The process has had knock-on effect of growing collaborations across functional boundaries. A notable achievement during this time was the galaxy of eminent people who have addressed the forum. Our immediate priority is for the disparate group of people to work in sync, to overcome challenges and draw new pathways for the future of the wonderful business community. It is critical that the work we do, besides benefiting this group, also finds resonance in the larger business community outside. Evidence of the economic opportunities that a circular economy could bring is mounting. The potential environmental impact is also clear. The move to a circular economy, a system that aims to reduce, reuse, and recycle materials, could address 70% of global greenhouse emissions. As the benefits stack up, this transition is becoming a key focus for policymakers around the world. But there remains much confusion about what a circular economy is and how it might be achieved. One common misunderstanding is the notion that it is simply a rebrand of recycling, the recovery and reprocessing of waste materials for use in new products. This perception is reinforced because recycling is the most common component of
whether he can
almost 80% of circular economy definitions. But although recycling is an important element, there are many others. Before recycling comes into play, there are several steps in a product's life cycle that should be addressed, such as redesigning products and processes so that they use less virgin material and reusing items rather than discarding them. New business models such as sharing and repairing can be adopted. These approaches prioritize smart designs that extend a product's useful life before reaching the stage of recycling. These steps are consistent with the central aim of a circular economy to provide economic productivity by eliminating the concept of waste. Over the past 3 years, we have been able to put together online programs to keep our AABN community not just engaged, but also meet a range of inspiring people who can help shape your ideas and thoughts. Today, we have one such personality, Mr. N.K. Skandamoorthy, a respected technocrat, educationist, and a social visionary. What makes him an apt choice for this audience is that he too is an alumnus of Annamalai University and he belongs to the 1979 batch of chemical engineering. I have the pleasant duty of welcoming and introducing him today at Sustainability and Recycling, No More an Option, an interactive business networking session. Mrs. Skandamoorthy has a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from Annamalai University and belongs to the 1979 batch. He has a post-graduation in business management from Symbiosis Institute, Pune. In his current role, he is a technical consultant to the board of a UK-based company setting up a textile recycling unit in the UK. He has worked with a company in India to set up plastics recycling unit and a textile sorting facility. He started consulting after superannuating in 2018 after 40 years of industrial experience. He has spent the last 20 plus years in the field of recycling and sustainability projects. He is superannuated as the CEO of Polygenta Technologies, a pioneer in the chemical recycling of post-consumer PET bottles to textile yarn. Prior to Polygenta, he was working as president in Future of Polyesters, a pioneer in the field of chemical recycling as well as mechanical recycling, and was the first to set up recycling of PET in India. In 2019, he worked as a technical consultant and set up a chemical pyrolysis plant for converting hard plastics to fuel oil in India. He has set up a project for converting waste gas from a carbon black processing unit to generate 4 megawatts of power. On the personal side, the university circles remember Mr. Skandamoorthy for his warmth and his genuine value for friendship. With a personality like Mr. Skandamoorthy, you can go on and on eulogizing. But let me stop here and let the audience have the privilege of listening to you, sir. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Skandamoorthy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gopi, for your kind words and elevating my... I'll just start sharing the screen so you will be able to see. I hope you're able to see the screen now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So the topic that I chose on was sustainability and recycling are no longer an option. The reason is that, having been in recycling for the last 20 plus years, And having seen the various plethora of applications and the greenwashing that happens, to be honest. Yeah, I thought it would be good for us to sort of at least recap and rejuvenate our thoughts about sustainability and recycling. This is a very basic, I would say, no, I wouldn't say awareness, because most people in the group are somehow related and know quite a lot about this. But it's just sort of like a refresher, because sometimes it happens that you are in tied up in so many things that you lose track of it. So I thought maybe on a Sunday morning, when the pressures of other chores and other activities are lower, this probably could be a mind churner for us. So yeah, I just will start with my profession. Of course, Mr. Gopi has already spoken about it and attributed quite a bit of extra um, you know extra credentials to me. But one thing that, of course, when Gopi and I were working on a project in Futura, we of course did not know that we were both from Annamalai, but we had a good working relationship, and we did something which was quite unique at that point of time in terms of the project. So, I just wanted to say that, apart from whatever Mr. Gopi has, been so kind to me about, is that this, textile to textile recycling unit is something which is very, very unique, and which is just catching up world over in the last 12, 18 to 24 months. And, it already has the first victim, so to say, the company called Renewcell in Sweden, who started off this, and, they're not able to sustain. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but why I have, picked up this anecdote is because it's a tough thing. I know when we started PET recycling, Futura, for example, or Polygenta took 8 to 10 years to, even start looking at cash plus, forget profits. So this is a tough business to be in, but it's the landscape is changing now. The landscape is changing now because the environment is so different. The legislations are getting tough, and the governments are getting serious about it. The politicians are getting serious about it. At this point of time, I just want to show you what I'm going to speak about. The first half would be about sustainability, what I mean by sustainability, or what I understand by sustainability. Why sustainability is a must for survival. I think someone has already said sustainability, the regulatory issues around sustainability, the processes of sustainability. The processes is not the process of sustainability, that the various actions or the various processes that have developed out of sustainable solutions. EPR, what's the need and what are the implications? LCA, life cycle analysis. Why is it an important tool? And then we talk about my favorite topic of recycling. I could go on, but we'll keep to time. And I would just want to highlight to the group what is recycling, and what are the various options available in recycling. Textiles. 20 years back, plastics was the biggest problem in terms of getting rid of the waste or getting rid of the plastics after it's been used. I think bigger than textiles is bigger than plastics is the textiles. It's actually a bombshell in the waiting, and we'll come to that. And then a small understanding of what circularity means and what are the implications. But it's like any these family serials and all. Out of 1,000 episodes, 990 episodes, the villain will win. But ultimately, the last 5 or 10 episodes, the hero or the heroine will win. It's like that. The bottom line is not so bad. We still can come out of it and come out victorious. So I have a few learnings which I would like to share. I would just want to make one statement. There, because environment, regulations, etc. involved, there could be some statements which are not which are not mine, but some statements which are general in the general atmosphere, so to say, which could look political, but
Sorry for interrupting. Can you please show it in a full presentation mode so that we can see a full big screen?
Okay, I'll do that.
Sorry, thank you.
One minute.
In the bottom, in the bottommost, right? Yeah, correct. Just before the percentage, there is a small icon.
I know. Yeah. Is it okay now?
No. Yes,
no?
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. So, some statements may look political, but be rest assured there are no political overtones or political tones to this presentation. It's been based on technical understanding and, of course, experiences that I've had on the way. Sustainability, what's the general meaning? It's no rocket science, to be honest. But, it is basically common sense, but unfortunately not very common, in the sense that, we know, for example, that, plastics and paper cannot be recycled together. But when you see a waste bin, there's no way that, you generally throw everything together. But if someone teaches, or, if someone, comes to the understanding that, yeah, plastics and paper are different, and you put them off separately, then there is the first step to sustainability starts there. So, a very small step, but, a very important step. So that's something that, we need to culturally develop. Sustainability, what's the actual meaning is, it means meeting our needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. I mean, it's very apt in one sentence. It says, you live, but let live for the future. I mean, to be very honest. I mean, it's not, it doesn't mean that, you starve yourself so that the next generation, survives or whatever. But it means that, you just pick so much that you need, pick it properly, and give it back to nature so that the next generation can use that. And in my opinion, sustainability is not just environmental. Very many times, the moment people talk of sustainability, the first thing that comes to mind is environmentalism. It's not that. There is a lot of things in sustainability which are apart from environment, in terms of sustainable finance, in terms of sustainable people, in terms of sustainable, methods, in terms of sustainable processes, so many things. I mean, you can go on and on. So the sustainability is a big umbrella under which environment is a major component, but it's not the only component of sustainability. Like I said, it includes cultural, social, technological, political aspects. Now, I mean, I picked up this phrase just to, have the importance of that phrase. It's called the triple bottom line. That means the triple is for three, people, planet, and profit. So John Elkington, I mean, he was actually a management guru, and then later on became environment guru, so to say. The phrase that triple bottom line he coined in 1996. Okay, I mean 1994. Sorry, no, 1996. Yeah, 1994 he had this, and 1996 so it's almost 30 years now that he coined that phrase, and we are not very much away from where he was when he coined this phrase, so to say, because the problem is that there is, I mean, it's like not that we are not aware, not that we do not know, but I think the other pressures in life, or the other pressures in terms of performance, in terms of profit, in terms of whatever, uh, so overtakes all of us that we haven't really progressed in this case. And Mr. John, if he had said that in 1994 that it was a crisis at that point of time, and you see nothing much has happened after that, so you can understand the seriousness, and that is why sustainability or recycling is no longer an option now. It probably was an option when he phrased it. Today, it's no longer an option. We've come to such a stage that it's now a must. I mean, and just to, this is specifically going back to the Oriental culture, because all Oriental cultures are very similar. So, I mean, our forefathers probably were much better in terms of understanding the environment, in terms of sustainability. And, they lived to the needs, they, picked to their needs and probably were satisfied with that. But unfortunately now, the whole culture is so self-centered, selfish, that, the sustainability is taking a hit. For example, we know what the war in Iraq was for, what the war in Afghanistan is for, or was for. And so, getting into, I'm not getting into the specific of that, but it looks very clear and self-centered approach that, I live peacefully, whatever happens to you happens, so to say. We have a better education, definitely, in terms of the progress made in education. But how much of value education do we have, or do we impart? That's a big question, $1 million question that we should ask all of us, ourselves, as to, are we in the right path? Now, how did we come to a situation like sustainability has to be a must because of global warming? Now, the global warming has happened because of over-industrialization, in the sense that, the production levels, capacity levels, whatever, leading to so many emissional issues, rampant construction activities. I mean, probably no one pays any respect to nature, and construction activities happen all haphazard, and not taking proper design calculations into. I'm talking, when I say design calculation, not I'm talking of the basic construction design, but basically the ecological design into considerations. Like I was saying, I mean, human race has become a warlord over the ecosphere. I mean, I think humans think that they own the ecosphere, they own the earth, and they can do what they want, and by degrading and denigrating the ecosphere, and which is creating a lot of improper ecological issues, and leading to global warming. Greed and no respect for nature or the eco balance. I mean, another thing is our greed to get more and more and more, even beyond our requirements. Then blatant consumerism. I'll come to this at a later stage. but I mean, with an example, but right now I just want to say, I mean, which is known to everybody. There's not any rocket science behind this. There's blatant consumerism and the packaging world where I was involved for 15 years at least. I know, we were the suppliers. So the packaging itself, I mean, the packaging the packaging department was more powerful than the production department in many of these consumer items, because we've dealt with the supply chain. And I know for sure that the packaging probably would win over, the other departments when it came to showcasing the product. And the product probably, in terms of quality, may be good by itself or bad, but packaging would determine the outreach to the consumers. There was blatant consumerism leading to overproduction, and of course, total disregard to the environment, which I've already spoken to you in a. Now, we can go on and on and on, these are the issues. And so, what happens is that, like a mantra, the only antidote that is found is sustainability, because
slowly being okay.
Yeah. So sustainability is the only antidote. And what are the arms of sustainability? First is the legislations getting strict, very strict legislations. I mean, I'm not saying they are strict as of today, but they are better than what it was yesterday, better than what it was day before yesterday. And it's getting stricter because we are getting exposed to a couple of legislations, which I will talk to later on. Green energy, green buildings. I mean, nowadays, I mean, this would be I could have raised this anecdote here, is when we were looking for a facility to set up a sorting facility. I mean, the usual pitch of, so much rupees per square feet, so much dollars per square feet, and was not the number one statement. It used to be a couple of years back. Now it was, we have, skylights, we have transparent rooftops, we have solar power, we have wind power and whatnot. So, I mean, of course, finally it comes down to rupees per square feet. I'm not denying that. But at least the topic in terms of presentation was different, which is a welcome change. The other thing is recycling. I think when we come to recycling, I'll touch in greater detail about that. And then finally, circularity, because recycling also is seen that it really doesn't, say 100% sustainability. So circularity is what is the final, idea, at least as of date, to improve the sustainability. Now, what are the push that sustainability gets? There are some major regulations that are there. These are the ESG regulations. I mean, and this is environment, sustainability, governance, regulations for corporates. So they have to make those report things, and the monitoring is a little more tougher these days because of the corporate responsibilities. And there are improvements in that area. Then, of course, the EPR regulations, the extended producer responsibility regulations for producers and products, and which is again, helping to become more sustainable in the sense that at least now, earlier distribution agencies or channels would be decided by many factors, but now at least the companies who are in public domain do look at EPR regulations quite seriously, and we keep getting a lot of inquiries regarding that. Then this is CSRD. This is a directive which is coming in. It's now in the EU. It's also in its nascent stage, but it is coming in, and that is Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. It's a directive, I think from 2024 it started, but I think 2026 it will come into full form. Why I make this mention here is because I think slowly it's percolating to rest of the world, and this would definitely become one of the reporting mandates for people to export. This is, of course, a stricter and more developed version of ESG, honestly. But there are a lot of factors that are put into this directive so that it's more comprehensive. Then, of course, there is the EU emissions trading system where, like a bucket is there and the bucket has, let's say, $10 and, you have to pick, and each company has these carbon credits and they have a cap on how much of carbon credits they can get, or carbon emissions. I mean, it's the reverse, carbon emissions that they can do. Once they reach that, then they have to either stop their production, which obviously no one does, but then they buy credit so that overall the basket is only that much and more emissions do not happen. So the person who, if I have overstepped my limit and I buy from X, then that X has to ensure that he doesn't, overstep his own limit and reduce by whatever I have bought, so that as a basket, the emission is kept at a cap. The single-use plastic regulation, which is a very, well-known. Only thing is the implementation and the monitoring is a little less. Then REACH regulation, those of us who are in chemical industry would know that REACH is a must for us to be able to operate in the European Union zone. Then EPA regulations, there are a lot of, branches under this, because there is water, there is air, there is emissions, there is noise, all that. But I've just put it as a global thing to say EPA regulations. So those are things that, give a push towards sustainability. And of course, zero liquid discharge industrial zones and zero liquid discharge facilities and whatnot, which the law is getting stricter, though there are mishaps, and we had one very recently. But then anyway, that's a mishap. But other than mishap, there is of course a good amount of control. In fact, more to say from a penalizing point of view, and that's why people are more careful than earlier. And of course, there is this circular economy action plan. Now, the action plan is, is to get circularity in the economy, design for circularity, which we will come to at a later stage, or in the textile market, fashion for circularity is becoming a big thing that, that any fashion should have circularity in mind before it is put in the market. Of course, these are all in the nascent stages, very preliminary, but I am quite sure, like PET recycling, which has grown over the last 10-15 years, I think this would also grow similarly. Now, coming to taxonomy regulations, this is mostly in the EU region, and this is basically it's like the Sustainable Development Goals Finance. There are certain, it's based on that, and on sustainable development, and then you get some tax benefits, you get some credits, you get interest rate benefits and whatnot. So that's just a general idea for, this is just to give a flair for what all is happening in the world to, get sustainability a push. Mandate on recycling in plastics and textiles. It is a mandate. I mean, like the EU has a mandate that, by the year 2027 and 2020, the recycling content in PET bottles or drinking water bottles has to be a minimum of 25%. Today, it's around 7, 8, 10%. It has to be a minimum. So there's a lot of push in the plastics recycling industry, which you can see by the number of units that have been set up. The biggest thing is, I mean, which is an eye-opener for anyone in this business, is that India, which had banned use of recycled content in food grade applications from last year, has started giving a reprieve, and food content plastics can have up to 25% recycled content. But nowadays, I mean, they've started with 10%, but they seem to be following the global standards, where the global standard is by the year 2040, you get at least 50% recycled content in food grade applications. Similarly, textiles, there is a big push that recycled content in textiles also should be a minimum of 10% by the year 2030. So, I mean, this is just to give a flair for the various regulations that the governments, meetings like G20 and what are outcomes of all these come out. And of course, there are many more, but, it can go on. Just to give you a flair for, how sustainability is getting a push, a fillip. Now, some of the sustainable actual on-field activities, green energy, of course, is solar power, wind power, then the waste to energy projects. I mean, like municipal waste getting converted to energy, or tires getting pyrolysis projects, plastic pyrolysis getting into energy or liquid fuels. So, and if you look at it for solar power, wind power, there are a huge infrastructure being set up, and there's a lot of incentivization that's happening. So that's good, because if people have to change over from fossil fuel, then I think incentivization is very important for getting people involved. Like I was talking about the green building. I mean, this is in a place like the UK, where we were looking for a factory, and the first thing that we got from them was all the sustainability certifications that they had. And even in India, for a facility in Ahmedabad that we are involved in, there's a lot of these things like rooftop design, where they are saying skylight designs, transparent rooftops, etc., by which they claim that you could cut down your electricity cost, power cost, by about 20 to 30%, and demonstrated. I mean, I'm in Ahmedabad, where we had this particular company had demonstrated one such project in that they had set up in Indore. Carbon capture. Now, this is a very unique process which I came across, and one of our colleagues is also involved in this process. It's a unique bioprocess where the emissions from chemical industry, or emissions from our industry or whatever, those emissions are captured biologically in a bioprocess, and then carbon is captured from these emissions, and then they convert to product. I mean, one such product that I have read through, of course, I'm no part to this process, is that from an emission, it seems they captured carbon And from carbon, they manufactured monoethylene glycol. I mean, monoethylene glycol, which is one component of PET, polyester. And they use that MEG to make polyester, and they made a textile out of it. And I mean, of course, everybody would have heard of this company called Zara. So Zara showcased that product in one of their fashion shows. So I mean, that's something that I was really impressed, and it's something that really caught my eye. Then there is another company where they are capturing graphene from plant-based systems. I mean, why I say is because of sustainability. I mean, they're getting graphene, they're capturing, I don't know the process. It's under patent, so they probably don't want to disclose this. But it's a company that is capturing graphene from plant-based system. And as you know, graphene has a unique property. I mean, it has this unique property of, being very light but very strong. And this graphene fiber is used in wearable textiles. So, when you have wearable textiles, that is, you can sort of, use those textiles to communicate, to, to use RFID to, trace and whatnot. So that's, so if you look at it, like they say, unless you're pushed to the wall, you don't do anything. It's something like that. I basically captured these 2 points because the other things are, more or less happening. But these are two new, very innovative products that are coming out of sustainable options. And I think this is just the beginning, and I think we'll find a lot more and lot more things that's happening in this sphere. Organic farming, of course, everybody knows. Logistics management. I want to, logistics management, there is a sea change in the process and the usage. I mean, see, the government also doing its part. And like I said, there's no political statements here, but, a couple of years back, if you were on the road, especially highways, you'll find that, there'll be at least 100, 200 trucks on the road. Now, they are on idling, or they are wasting fuel, wasting time and all that. Now the tax structure change has brought in that you find that the roads are empty. The truck is going as fast or even faster than people who are driving in their four-wheelers. The other thing is the infrastructure, the highway infrastructure, the roads, where the speeds have gone up, the timings have come down, traffic jams have come down. Forget the city part, but at least on the highways. And, having these toll plazas, which used to have, where you had manual interventions, the amount of time spent on toll plaza and the amount of time spent today on toll plaza is so much different. So all this adds, there are indirect benefits, but, if you look at it and start calculating, you see the savings that come out. And more than savings and financial savings, it's the environment which is getting richer because that much less emission coming out. I have an example on logistics management as I go down in the phrase, and that has nothing to do with this, but it's how people think differently too.
Huh?
I said, so recycling, the most common sustainable project. Recycling is the most common sustainable project because it's been going on for so many years. It was being done in households. Your grandmother, our grandfather, our parents, they probably are doing all this in their own way. But now it's become more industrialized, more channelized, and more sophisticated. Recycling of plastics, metal, wastewater, etc. into new products. Textile recycling, there is a lot of pioneering work happening. This is started late, but better late than never. So the fashion houses and manufacturers are teaming up. Like I said about this Zara Fashions, they took this trial with with this unique carbon capture process. And I mean, they are obviously spent a lot of money in the research of that, but I'm quite sure they'll get benefits out of it as time happens. And of course, one of the most important recycling is the e-waste recycling. I think there's a lot of value that is coming out of this waste, but a couple of years back, people were struggling how to dispose of their laptops or their, TV sets and things like that. But now there's an avenue, and from a, business standpoint, it is of course creating value out of waste, but from an environment standpoint as well, it is creating a big plus. And coming to zero discharge facility, I think that it has a big ranking in sustainability, because water is one of the diminishing resources, and we need to take care of that. So I mean, and that I think is, though it's quite common, but it's a very big ranking in sustainability. Now, what is EPR? I mean, EPR, of course, as it says, extended producer responsibility. Now, the earlier phase was where the producer would produce, and there would be a distributor or whatever, the marketing channel, which would take care of getting the product to the consumer. The consumer would use it, and whatever happens after that is the consumer's problem or the problem of the local government. But now with EPR, they have sort of extend the responsibility, right? Just to say, from cradle to the grave of a product life cycle. Similarly, the advantage of this is that, I mean, there were many carefree producers who, I mean, I use the word carefree not with any bad intentions, but the thing is that they didn't really have any responsibility. They had an open mind. I mean, a responsible producer would still do whatever is needed, but if he was an irresponsible producer, he would go scot-free. But today, that is not the case. Since they have to be responsible, they now there are a lot of marketing channels that have to set up their own sustainable systems, so that the producer producer has total control over the system, and he monitors to see that he is not getting penalized. And so the whole chain, so to say, the whole supply chain has become more disciplined. And also collecting back the waste, collecting back the the leftovers, etc., is so much more disciplined than earlier. Of course, monitoring and implementation have to get stricter, but at least there is a beginning and there is a big awareness around that. Now, there are, like I was saying, there are a lot of loopholes. People find loopholes like trying to buy EPR certificates and whatnot, but then not doing enough, but trying to buy trade-off is as if they are buying equity off or something like that. But then everything needs time to mature. So I mean, I'm quite hopeful. Like, so many things have matured over the years. This also will mature. The lawmakers will wake up, and they'll start applying stricter yardsticks and all that, and as a whole, EPR will become a much better regime in terms of sustainability and in terms of improving the environment. Like I said, the credits are tradable. There are EPR credits that are available, and you could trade them off. And in some cases, these are used as loophole. I'm not saying that the big companies, the public domain companies, most of them behave responsibly. But there are, of course, enough companies, small companies that probably are using these loopholes. But I'm quite sure over time, these loopholes will get, caught up with. Now, what is LCA? Now, LCA is very important, and it's an important tool, life cycle assessment. Now, what happens is earlier, people were not forced to do this LCA. There were companies which were doing LCA, honestly, some big names, but the general companies would not do any LCA. This basically is a study which sort of, like you have the HAZOP in engineering design. This is something like a HAZOP in the product life cycle. That, at every stage of these product life cycle, that is starting from the raw material inputs right up to the end product usage and its grave, up to the grave stage, the assessment is done. And these assessments are done based on, the standard things in terms of what is the energy used, what are the, raw materials, what are the toxicology of the raw materials, if there are any issues around that. So all these get these, and then they are sort of added up as a matrix, and then you get a number. I mean, I'm telling it in very simple terms. And then based on that, the life cycle assessment is done. Now, so what happens at each stage, there is an analysis done, and then you are open to see that impact at that stage, and probably take alternative methodology or alternative steps or alternative materials to see that you can reduce the impact of the process or impact of the raw material that's being used, so that it becomes more environment friendly, the product. Now, why I say the critical paths, because they're a critical path in every process. I mean, like, let's say from, in terms of recycling. I mean, I just give you an example. When compared to virgin material, recycled material has a lot of advantages in terms of the chemical inventory that you may call. But a lot of people also do not realize, and when we did this LCA in future for a company, we really found out that, you see, what happens is, let's say you import, a chemical, 40-foot container, you could import 40 tons of material. Okay, so the logistics cost is X. But in terms of the PET bottles that you buy, the empty bottles, a 40-foot container, you may get only 16 to 17 tons. Okay, so I mean, like, just 30 or 40% of the. So the transport cost used to be huge. And you are actually transporting air, so to say, because an empty bottle has a lot of air. So, if you get into the LCA mode, then, you're able to justify, you're able to understand, and also, impress upon the nuances of each step. And then we found that, okay, like, let's say, I mean, I don't have the numbers off my head, but I remember the LCA when we did, initially, they came out that, the recycling would give a 70% benefit. And then when, such factors we started looking in, we found that, of course, it gives benefit. There's no doubt about it. But it was not 70%, it was 40 to 45%. So, I mean, what I mean to say is, you get into the, like, the devil is in the detail, so to say. And so when you get into life cycle assessment thoroughly, then you understand what is the stage at which your product is. And then reverse logistics. And this is what I wanted to highlight with an example. We were doing a project in Kenya, setting up a PET fiber line. I mean, PET bottles, sorting, washing, and then we were doing the fiber line there. And what happened was, as you know, the distribution channel is such that, like, for example, we were working with one of the collaborators in that project was Coca-Cola Kenya. So, the distribution is such that it's sourced out, outsourced. And so the company that was, distributing the products through their logistics would just go and, distribute the product, place it on the shelf, and they had their own other businesses to do because it was outsourced. And then uh, another company, would go and pick up all the used up bottles and things like that, maybe once a week or whatever. I don't remember the frequency. Now, we had Coca-Cola said that we should have a task force for this. And then they gave their logistics supervisor, not a manager and all that, a supervisor who became part of the team for us. And that guy, being the practical guy, he said that, there is a company that comes in and, fills up all the shelf spaces and all that. And then they just go away, and then they go 40, 50 miles because that's where the, warehouse is. And then they come back the next day. And then there's another company which comes once in a week or 3 or 4 days, and then they do this. And then he said that, why can't we sort of do reverse logic? That is, when this company comes in to, fill the shelves, it's obviously getting a lot of empty space. Why can't we put our empty bottles on a daily basis and not spend more money on and, save the environment? That was a great idea. I'm talking this about 3, 4 years back. And now I see a lot of, companies doing reverse logistics. What I mean to say is, such small things really help when you are part of an LCA team and, you're looking minutely. So this is something that is a learning that LCA is not just something which is technical and has to do only with the product, process, energy, etc. Even things like transport, logistics, etc. could help. Now, coming to my favorite topic, and I hope you'll excuse me if I, overstep. But then this is something I've been doing for almost 20 years. So now, the recycling of plastics is what I've basically touched upon. The reason is because, in the 80s and 90s, when fuel consumptions and, were becoming a nightmare, and, the oil prices were so high and people are looking for bringing down fuel costs, especially where the heating costs, etc. The plastic was found to be a wonder material. Plastic was something like, at that point of time, the, end all for all problems, or the be all for all problems. But then suddenly what happened was, there was an indiscriminate usage of plastic. And in fact, I would say abuse, not even use, abuse of plastic usage. And then people found plastics everywhere, on the beach, on the road, landfills, everywhere. Outside houses, people seeing suddenly plastic became a demand. It was the demand that was creating all the issues. And, then if there are environmental issues, can politics be far behind? That's a statement that we keep making sometimes. So then there were a lot of, groups, and there are a lot of activities where they said plastic should be banned, plastics is this, that. There are a lot of bad mouth happening. And then people who were actually, getting battered were the producers. And that's how all these EPR and whatnot has come into the picture. But the producer was producing, of course, I'm not saying, any credit to that. But the bigger problem was the misuse by the consumers, the misuse by the people in the consumer chain, in the marketing chain, that were creating the problem and not the producers themselves. Producing plastics was really a gem because that helped the auto sector, that helped the FMG sector. As you know, the fuel efficiencies, and today you have plastics as good as which have mechanical and all properties as good as steel. Oh, and so lightweighted the products. So movements, transportation became so much easier, and the costs came down because plastics is one thing that you can produce in large numbers because you one time more than you can produce probably million pieces. Anyway, so there are a lot of attributes to plastic, but what happened was because of all these pressures and when there are so many so-called green groups getting involved, then the governments also have, or the people in the political sphere also have their backs to cover, and also they come out with certain statements which are not technically or in the true spirit, but then you have to live with that. That's life. So then recycling became the only choice because they had to calm down all these fretted nerves, so to say. And so they came out with this thing that okay, recycling has to be done, so that if recycling is done, then the fossil fuel and the inventory of the chemicals of the fossil fuel chemistry could be saved. So that is how recycling began its journey. And here I just want to add thing that Pepsi in the US had issue with the same thing, that the government was getting after their bags, saying that you had to put at least 25% recycled content. I'm talking of this in the year 2000, 2001, in the bottles. And that's how Futura was born, so to say, because Pepsi was looking for someone in India because it was prohibitively expensive and prohibitively impossible for them to get it done in the US. And so the project happened, and then they would send the empty bottles from their yards, etc., to Futura. We used to import them, and then we used to make recycle polyester. We set up wash lines. We set up the chemical recycling reactors. We also set up mechanical recycling reactors there. I mean, lines there. And that's how recycling started. And Futura was one of the first corporates to really get into this business in the year 2001, 2002. So that's how recycling was born. I mean, I just wanted to highlight the reason how recycling. So recycling was born 20, 25 years back. I mean, it's impossible for someone who's not in the field to envision this. But I remember that in 2004, 5, etc., there were companies who would say, that please take away the waste from our yard. We don't want any material. If you clear it, that's enough. And today, that same material, you don't get it for even 60, 65 rupees per kilo. So in 20 years, you can see the growth of that industry. Now, what were the issues around recycling? Because recycling did not really take off initially. It took a lot of effort, and probably in the last 5 to 10 years, it started picking up. And probably in the last 5 years, it has started making money also as an industry. There would be, of course, some players who do make money, who have made money, no doubt about it. And there would be some who haven't. But overall, the industry as an industry has started making money for the last 5 to 10 years. Now, the biggest problem was there was no proper infrastructure for collection systems. So people were throwing it off on the road or wherever, use and throw, and throw wherever you can. The legislations were weak, and there was no proper monitoring happening. the producers, like the produce defined, responsibility was not defined, and it was not a focused industry. I mean, generally now recycling is catching up because of so much of pressures on sustainability, so much of pressures on natural resources, etc. But it was not a focused industry. The attitude was that, oh, recycling, okay, I mean, this is something, I won't say derogatory, but something inferior. And so people will say, okay, okay, you virgin material 20 rupees, then this should be 5 rupees, something like that. So there was not much interest of people also to get into this sphere, because anything you said recycling, even if it was as good as virgin, it would not fetch you a price. It would not fetch you invest. Now, so since there was not much money, in the industry, and there was not much interest, and it was always on a lower gradient, so to say. This resulted in people not investing into technology, not investing into any development work, and so the the industry remained relatively poor in technology. But then what happened was, as the pressure on sustainability grew, as the virgin material prices started growing up, wars used to happen, oil prices would shoot, and then PTA, MEG, and all these polypropylene, whatever plastic would shoot through the roof. And then suddenly people remember that, oh yeah, recycling is the option for us. So, those spikes happened, and finally, I think good sense prevailed. And over the last 10 years or so, there's a lot of awareness that's created because of this. And now, if you see, there are a lot of NGOs that are doing a lot of good work in this area. See, the biggest challenge in recycling is collection. Per se, recycling is not the issue. The issue is collection of the waste material. So now you have these lot of NGOs, they have beach cleanups, they have ocean cleanups. There is a Finnish company who's come into India, and on the Yamuna, they're working. This is called river recycling. So their forte is they do all these sort of catchments in rivers. So they've done that in the Danube there in Europe, and then they got tied up with an NGO in India, and they did that in Yamuna, and I'm told they are also now looking at other rivers in the West. Then, right, a lot of advertisements is happening, a lot of aura is being created that recycling is the only way to survival, and so that's catching up. And then cost of the product. Earlier, everything was cost. I mean, like, okay, this is, I get virgin at 10 rupees. Can you give me at 2 rupees? Now, I think I'm not saying cost is no longer a factor. That would be a misconception. What I'm trying to say is people are also looking at, okay, I am willing to pay maybe 10% more, 20% more if it is recycled, because overall it is benefiting. There are, because of the sudden interest and sudden developments in the industry, there's a lot of technological advances that have happened. I mean, like some of the technologies that we spoke already about, there's a lot of technological improvements happening, and that's a good sign. And of course, the legislation is also helping. Now, there are two types of recycling that, process. One is, of course, the mechanical recycling, which is more simple. And the other one is the chemical recycling, where it goes through complex chemical reactions or chemical processes. Now, I'm not going to run through every of them because we touched upon them. But the basic, the reason for putting up this slide is the basic flavor that one should get out of it is mechanical recyclings are very much simpler, and it has low gestation periods. They are easy to construct. They are much more simpler to construct. And the downsides to this is that you can't build huge 100-ton, mechanical recycling unit. You probably will have to have modular scales for that. Like you may have to build 5-ton, 10-ton plants and then have multiple plants of them. And most important is that you need, since there are no chemical reactions happening, so the structurally or chemically, the waste is not getting changed. It's only morphologically getting changed. And that is why having a good consistent waste material is very important, which is very difficult. I mean, it's not, waste doesn't come out of chemical process where it's monitored through a PLC or something. Waste comes out from 100 different sources, and waste comes out. I mean, the very word waste itself gives a situation, I mean, gives a feeling that, okay, you don't have to take much care of it. So people who are producing that do not take much care of it. So there's a lot of variation in the quality, the variation in the quantity of the material that you get. Whereas in chemical recycling, the technology is very complex, and it requires a lot of hard work in terms of R&D, a lot of large capital. And of course, no chemical plant can be built without engineering, design. So there are a lot of chemical complex engineering designs that I mean, as we engineers, all of us would appreciate, that requires a lot of investment. Of course, the advantage is that you can have large capacities, like you can build a plant for 100 tons per day. And so you get a hugely uniform product out of it. Like in the mechanical, if you get 5 tons of consistent product, here you can get 100, 200 tons of products. And the other thing is that even if there's a variation in the raw material, it can still accept it, because ultimately it gets broken down. It goes through a chemical process, so its chemical structure is changed, and then you break it down to its primary part, and you rebuild that. So you will obviously get your final quality based on your process parameters, and raw materials have a lesser role to play. But the technology being very complex, very capital intensive, it's still in nascent stage, and it needs a lot of maturing to happen. Now, the next slide is because on specifically on chemical recycling, just to give a flair for what are the types of chemicals recycling technologies available. So, I mean, basically all plastics can be recycled, even if it's polystyrene or polyethylene or polypropylene or polyester, polyamide, which is nylon. So even hard to recycle plastics, colored plastics, etc., can be recycled. In terms of mechanical recycling, you can't recycle colored plastics totally, because blue color, when you the blue color coming from 4 different sources may not be the same blue, so you'll have color variations and whatnot. So you get downcycled. So the mechanical product recycling from the mechanical recycling do get downcycled. Whereas in chemical recycling, you have dye stuff removal, which is a problem. So you will ultimately get your pure chemical out, and then you can sort of make the product and color it or whatever you want to do with that. And among plastics, PET, that is polyester, is the most versatile. Now, like I have said, I mean, pyrolysis or thermal decomposition is one chemical process where plastics is broken down under high temperature and pressure to get you can convert it directly into energy, or you can convert into fuel oil and then refine it and get it. And there are plants that produce almost equivalent of diesel using this technology. The chemical processes, which I've said about, many chemical processes where you do depolymerization and then repolymerize back to the polymer. Enzymatic degradation, that is, you use enzymes to degrade polymers. There is a lot of work happening in Netherlands on this, and the companies come very close to enzymatic degradation of polyester and polyethylene. If polyethylene can happen, then polypropylene also can happen. So that's And that's a lot of work that's happening. Then there is this hybrid process wherein the first half of the process, the mechanical process of shredding, etc., and grinding and whatnot, and then the chemical process by which the uh, the plastic can be broken down. Carbon capture, I think we've already dealt with earlier. Solvolysis is a new process. This is basically done where they use a solvent and to, you know, uh, filter out one polymer from the other. I mean, it's unique because I mentioned this unique because, you know, any textile that you see, you will not have 100% cotton or 100% polyester. You will have, say, 65% polyester, 35% cotton, or the other way. You may have some, you know, you have these denim jeans and all that, which has that elasticity. So that's actually that comes because of a polymer called elastane, which is used in the process. You know, like you have those, uh, you know, tapes, etc., which are stretchable, or you have these stretchable jeans. These are all having a polymer called elastane, which sort of gives you that elasticity. And so it's very difficult for you to have one process because the process for polyester degradation is different from cotton. So this solvolysis is a process by which you can take a material which is you know, a mixture of polyester and cotton, and then you can, you know, take out the cotton from that as a filtrate, and you know, the polyester would come out as the residue, and then you can say process it. We are actually working on this project, and I'm actually bound by NDA to, you know, keep it to as minimum as possible in terms of letting out the process. Circularity. Circularity, of course, what is circularity? Circularity is actually a process to create a durable, reusable, and recyclable product that generates zero waste. I mean, ideally, okay? I mean, zero waste is not possible, but that's the ideal definition. That you have a product that's durable, so you don't need to produce often enough. You have something that can be used, so you don't have to produce often enough. And you have something that can recycle back, so you don't have to produce often enough. So that way you're able to save the natural resources. But of course, zero waste is ideal, but you know, that is in the definition to impart the importance of what zero waste is. Now, basically, how circularity came into legislation. I mean, today it's a directive, but it will shortly become a legislation. I'm quite sure, you know, we will see legislation happening in the next couple of years. Because of the, you know, I mean, we have to blame ourselves for it. No one else. Who else? I mean, the animals, etc. They don't really disturb the ecosphere as much as we do, so to say. And so this misuse, which has led to depleting resources, which has led to climate changes, global warming, and you have all the evils that you can list them down. And that is the reason why circularity has become such a critical issue. Now, what are the 5 R's of circularity on which it works, which we've already spoken about? One is to reduce our needs. I think, you know, that blatant consumerism has to come down and probably buy as you need. I mean, I just want to share an example, and this is nothing to do with any person or any country or whatever. But you know, we were doing a survey when we started this project in the UK. We were doing a survey in a place called Cambridge. I mean, it happens to be Cambridge. There are no other annotations to that. So you know, we had about 150 people in the gathering, most of them ladies, probably 80-90% of the ladies. And there was a moderator. I mean, I was, or we from Circulate were just an audience. We found that, there was this was organization called Fashion for Good. And they were doing this survey. And, they asked a very, very, very innocent question. They said, okay, whoever wears, whoever wears the same garment once a week, raise your hands. There were hardly any hands up. Then, it went on once a month, once a fortnight, once a week, once a month, once a quarter, whatnot. And then you wouldn't find, I mean, I was surprised, and they were all UK citizens from that place, from nearby London and Cambridge and whatnot. And when he said, those who don't repeat once in 6 months, once halfway, there were about 60, 70 hands which went up, which was, I mean, eye-opener to me. And then, like the founder of our company, she said, yeah, this is good that, we can use a lot of material for recycling. I mean, it was a joke, not in the real sense, but I mean, that is the type of consumerism that I mean, I happen to be there, but, when I read reports from so many other people, it's not very different elsewhere as well. Reuse, of course, we know what it is. I mean, I think the Oriental culture is so much suited for circularity. I think the Europeans and the others probably would be much more worried because it's not in their genes. But the Oriental culture is so much impregnated in the genes of circularity that, that I'll tell you a statistics after this, which would fortify my explanation. So reuse, repair, refurbish, recycle. And what goes without saying is produce or use only if needed. Now, we did when we were doing this PET recycling in the PET recycling business, we did get reports from, McKinsey and then PwC, who were doing surveys. You would be, I mean, I wasn't surprised, but a lot of people were surprised. US has used, I mean, this is about 5 to 7%, 5 to 7%, sorry, 5 to 7 years back. The US had 9 to 11% of recycling happening. The EU was around 22 to 26%, depending on, because EU has so many countries. So, Germany was very high compared to someone else. And the Orient, that is India and the Asian, these recycling levels was 60% plus. So you can see, where we need to improve this culture. Now, what is design for circularity? It is, it's very simple. When we design a product, we have to design the product keeping in mind that we are going to use sustainable and optimal resources. And when we design a product, we have to keep in mind that this product has to be reused and has to have the recycle options. I will give you a small example of this. Is, when you do, I don't know, I mean, if you have, obviously we've seen this, the PET bottle. I come back to PET bottles because it's so much easier to really, interact with, because we see that on a daily basis. Now, earlier Sprite used to come in green bottles. Sprite used to come in green bottles. And because of the dye stuff, it was not possible to recycle it in the normal stream. And then there used to be a separate, sorting that had to happen, and all these green bottles would go to people who were making black fibers and whatnot, because green, black would mask all the other colors. Similar with blue and similar with other things. Now, in most countries, Sprite is now becoming transparent color, so that recyclability is better. Similarly, the shrink label that you see on top of the bottle, where they, where the company's name, like Bisleri or whatever, Aquafina, whatever, are there, those are actually PVC labels. And now a lot of research is going on, and it's being tried to be converted to polyester so that it becomes easier, because polyester as a stream would not have contamination and would be more amenable to recycling. Passion for circularity. I mean, I gave the example earlier about fashion. Now, why this became important is, in fashion or the textile usage garment, it used to be a linearity, and the linearity was take the material, make a material, use the material, and waste, whatever waste came out was thrown up. On that, now the whole textile chain is now working on making reuse and model as mandate. And that is the reason that you find a lot of the mills and a lot of these garmenting industries, etc., which are in Bangladesh and other countries, who are now, uh, being asked by their uh, by their by the fashion design houses to make all these designs so that recycling and reuse happens. Now, why did I say textiles is a ticking time bomb or a bombshell? See, there was a report in 2022 from McKinsey, and now it said the European Union generates about 90 million tons of textile, 90 million tons waste, just waste. And India also generates almost the same amount, and I'm quite sure UK also would be the same amount. I mean, not very different. Now, I mean, if you see a photograph that I've put on this slide, because there were other things, but I'm pointing out to this photograph because this is not which has come from any a general geographic thing. This is from a landfill site outside London. So you can see the amount of waste that's being generated. Now, what was happening was, till about 2020, 21 or something, the underdeveloped countries or African countries, etc., where the economy was lower, where the economy was um, not as vibrant and underdeveloped, the the unused garments from these European countries or the US would go to these countries, be sold off as cheap clothing, and whatever they couldn't sell, they used to have these landfills, and you'll get such landfills in all those countries. Now, what happened was the same thing was happening even in plastics. Now, what happened in 2016 or 2015, 2016 or 2017, I'm not sure, one of these geographical years, first China banned import of waste. And then India banned a year or two later import of waste. So what happened was two of their biggest export markets got locked. And then during COVID, when the environment was all packed with so many things and global warming and whatnot, in one of the conferences, someone said that the worst polluting thing is Africa, because it has so much of landfill, it has so much of this greenhouse gas issues and whatnot. And then basically the some of the African leaders came back saying that, it's all you guys who sort of dump on our continent and then we take the blame. So they now have started pushing back these imports. And that is the reason that, suddenly it has become a bombshell, because, I don't want to name any politically, but, if there's a problem in the EU or US, then it becomes the world's problem. Whereas if it's a problem elsewhere, it's not. So, so EU and US suddenly have found that, there are the avenues are getting closed, and then They have started now, on war footing to see that, textile recycling happens in their own continent. Another thing is, of course, all credit to the EU, because the EU Parliament actually passed it's actually a resolution, but it will become law. That's what I'm told. Last year, when they said that the EU country, whoever wants to export unused textiles or unused, plastics, etc., then they have to ensure that the same landfill or the same environment facilities are available in that country to which the export is happening. I mean, like, let's say if Germany wants to export to Ghana, then, then they have to ensure that Ghana's ecosystem, the environment system, or Ghana's, recycling capabilities, etc., such that it can, match EU standard. And so that's why people came back saying, why should I do all that in a different country, continent? Let's do it ourselves. And that's how this project started, where I'm involved in setting this up. Okay. I mean, this is just for interest, like earlier, the blatant consumerism that we talk of. Today, what has happened is, earlier fashion clothing was bought based on events or based on necessities. I mean, we are all well aware of all that. But today, it's no longer that. It's basically flaunting fashion flaunts. Earlier, there were not so many fancy designs, so many fancy colors, so many exotic colors, etc. So the dye requirements, the chemicals that goes into the dye, they are so much more toxic, so much more eco unfriendly because of these requirements. And earlier, cotton was the most popular and affordable fiber, and synthetics was, what cotton is today. But because of cost reasons, because of whatever reasons, crops not behaving properly, whatever, synthetic materials have overtaken, and that's cotton is degradable. Ultimately, cotton is nothing but a natural fiber, whereas these are not degradable, and that's what's starting to cause the problem. And of course, landfills areas also are getting shrunk because of construction, because the population growth. So people need more houses, people need more flat trees, and those are much more, value-added product compared to landfills. And so landfills sites are shrinking. Okay, and is everything so black, gray, dark? I don't think so, because I think if we can get our act together even today, there is hope. When legislations, governments have woken up, and now they are getting tougher. They are making sustainable products, processes, recycling contents, etc., mandatory. This will happen in other countries as well, because it has to start somewhere, flow down. I mean, like in all such experiments of legislation with the environment or sustainability, EU is always the front runner, and the US also, and the other kind of continents, other countries follow, and this is what it is. And then, most important, I think there's a lot of greenwashing happening, and we need to, call that out. Design for circularity has to become a way of life. Incentivization of recycling, which we've already talked, and of course, green energy. I think the bottom line is there is good news, because the same McKinsey report that I talked of says that the gap between supply and demand is for more than 40%. I mean, I'm talking of basically recycled products, is more than 40%, and more for plastics, and more than 80% for textiles. So there is hope. We chemical engineers and other engineers, all of us together, have a great scope. And, I think the Gen Next also has to sort of, work from day one on this. And I think green days are ahead. I'm really thankful to all of you all for your patience. I hope I didn't bore you, and I hope you enjoyed as I enjoyed presenting to you. Thank you so much, everyone, for your patience.
Thank you, sir. Excellent session. We had a nice time listening to you. We'll keep the floor open for question and answers now. Participants, you may please unmute and ask your questions, please.
As usual, I will lead.
Yeah.
Skandamoorthy, the one thing is, I mean, somehow people think cotton is green. I mean, it's not as green as we think. That also has a long life. Cotton fibers don't degrade. At least plastic, there's a chance of recycling. What do you do with cotton?
Cotton, no, cotton basically will degrade. It's not going to degrade overnight. I mean, like polyester will never degrade if you leave it on a landfill. Okay.
But it can be recycled, right?
Yeah. Cotton also can be recycled. Cotton fibers are recycled. There are technologies that are there. In fact, there is a technology, a Swedish company, which has a technology wherein you can probably get, the quality of cotton or a fiber is measured by its staple length. Okay? The length of the fiber. So generally, anything between 32 to 40 is supposed to be a very good fiber.
Okay.
And this technology, the Swedish company has a technology where they're able to produce, and I've seen it myself. I mean, they have a running plant in Turkey where they are able to produce cotton lengths of 26 to 30 mm or 28 mm.
From recycled.
From recycled. From denim, jeans, etc. They are shredded into small swatches, small pieces, and then they go through this process. It's basically a process, and they're able to, get 24 to 28 mm fiber length, which is very good.
Okay. My next question is, you have visited my factory. We are into thermoset plastics.
Right.
Basically, your printed circuit boards and the windmill blades, they're all, the thermoset plastic.
Correct.
So, is there, I mean, we want to try, because there's no recycling mechanically it is impossible. You can only crush and throw it into the landfill. Thermoset you cannot do. You have to do a chemical process or pyrolysis. Are there funds available by these guys? Because they have the problem for these Western countries is much more than us, like printed circuit boards and much, electronic waste and all those things. Are there funds where we can do the pilot and things like that for them, since you are already involved in that? Where is your plant actually? It's in India or UK?
No, in UK. In UK. It's in outskirts of London.
London.
Yeah.
Okay. Or the other way, will they be interested to also process thermoset, that is printed circuit board waste and things like that?
This fund that, this company, which is, where the investors are, they basically have an NGO. That's basically an NGO concept where they say it's fashion for circularity. That's their motto. So anything other than textiles, they don't work with. But we will talk offline.
I will be in touch with you.
There are one or two funds that I know of in London or the UK, and because there was another company which came out with a similar. This is a Swedish company which came out with a similar request in one forum. So I will talk to you offline.
There's one guy called Thiru Mogan. Thiru. He's also part of Annamalai. He's also into pyrolysis. He's into hospital waste and things like that. He's in UK, incidentally.
Oh, okay.
95 or something like that.
Okay.
We'll all connect. I didn't even know that you're in recycling. I'm so happy. Wonderful presentation. Amazing. I've taken photos of all your slides.
I can say this is my property, so I can forward it to you without any problem.
Okay.
If it was copyright, then I had a problem. This is my property, so I can.
Thank you. Wonderful.
You send me your. You have my phone number.
Yeah, I have your phone number.
Yeah, so
we'll
send
meet.
me your mail ID. I will forward this.
We'll meet.
I would be very happy to forward it, because at this age, I think it's important to have knowledge sharing and learn from each other. So absolutely no problem. I can,
Okay.
if there's any forum, I can also forward to Mr. Gopi and who can sort of take care of it. No issues.
Okay.
Absolutely. I will. You can send me your mail ID. I will forward. This
We'll
mail.
we'll touch
We'll keep in touch.
offline. Okay.
Sure,
Bye-bye.
definitely. Thank you so much.
Prabhakar, you can unmute and ask your question, Prabhakar.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Gopi and Mr. Skandamoorthy. It's an excellent session. And today, as the head of sustainability in our organization, we are getting into a lot of initiatives. And no, it's a way to survive now. Rightly said, Mr. Skandamoorthy. And I don't have any questions. Maybe one-to-one, we'll have some interactions later.
Sure, definitely. Most
Yeah. Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, thank you. My pleasure as well.
He's from Maladi Drugs, sir. Skandamoorthy, sir, is from Maladi Drugs. Prabhakar is from Maladi Drugs.
Okay, I
Yeah.
have. Oh, then it makes it all the more interesting. I'll tell you a story about Maladi later. A pleasant one. Don't worry. It's not unpleasant. It's a very pleasant one.
No, it's right. It's perfect. No, not an issue.
Yeah.
Actually, we are
I mean,
into.
I don't have. It's not. I mean, like one of the persons in Maladi is sort of known to me because he happens to be related to one of my cousins. So I mean,
Oh,
so
that's great. That's great. Actually, now Maladi, as you said, we are acting on a lot of initiatives. One of them is CDP, our emissions reporting,
okay.
and we are working on reduction of emissions, and we are working on green energy. Now, about 60% of our energy is from green sources like wind or solar, and our all our plants are zero liquid discharge plants.
Right.
And our waste also sent to cement co-incineration, not to landfill. Like that, no? All these initiatives the last 2 years.
Right.
Maybe with you we can interact more and get to know many, initiatives.
Absolutely. Whatever I can help.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Venkat, sir, you can unmute and ask your question, sir.
Yeah, my question basically was on zero discharge, and having driven a few projects within Tirmalai Chemicals where I work for, and also seeing as industry association member a lot of other industries grappling with this, we find actually liquid discharge more environment unfriendly with a lot of consumption of energy than other possible methods. And one thing I've always been thinking is, instead of evaporating all the water, concentrating it, evaporating it, putting it as salt, should we look for better solutions like recycling of the waste itself? I mean, wastewater itself. So, is this a good thing, or do you have an alternate point of view or a solution to zero liquid discharge? That's what I was looking for.
Okay, I mean, to answer you in two parts. One is, zero liquid discharge, became a legislation. I mean, not in the true sense, but, became more stringent because, people were, rampantly letting out water and whatnot. I mean, the works. But having said that, I've been working, because of this project, I've been working with certain technologies, and there are alternatives to what you are saying about the evaporation and evaporators and whatnot. And I mean, offline we can connect, and we can work together because I have some access to these technologies, and we can work together on that. Absolutely. There are instead of spending money, I mean, when I say money, when energy is spent and all that, there's money going. So instead of that, you can actually create wealth out of waste, so to speak. And it practically demonstrated.
Skandamoorthy.
So we can.
So Skandamoorthy.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Excellent presentation. Thank you very much for
thanks.
the knowledge.
We can connect.
Venkat, sir, I'll share your number, sir.
Yeah.
I will share it with you, sir. No problem.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Participants, please unmute and ask your questions, please.
Sir, good morning, sir. Good afternoon. This is Ramesh from Monipro Solutions. So it was a wonderful presentation. So regarding the plastic recycle, I have a question. Like, and as you know, there's biggest plastic this waste dump yard also happening. So the government can take initiatives in putting more taxes. How they do it for cigarettes, 28%, that type of thing. If they bring in, do you think we can reduce the usage, because still it is not happening at the ground level, especially the vegetable shops in other places. So what is your suggestions on this aspect?
I mean, can I ask a question on this? Do you think cigarette consumption has come down after all these taxes?
Whether it has come down or not, I don't know.
No,
At least
actually,
let them pay the price so that that money is used. Like, when you go in airline, they ask for more for green tags and other things.
I mean, jokes apart, what I wanted to say is actually incentivization starts working. Okay, I'll tell you a case. Like I'll tell you, in most European countries, it's happening now. What happens is, let's say, a bottle of Coca-Cola costs say 20 rupees. Okay, now what you have to do is you have to pay 21 rupees to the distributor or whoever, wherever you buy from. Then when you go and give back the bottle to him, he gives you that 1 rupee. Okay. So if you'll see the amount of collection of PET bottles in Germany is 93%.
Okay.
So, incentivization is what helps. Penalization doesn't help, because what happens is, after the first few days, you will, there's this statistics, and which is very informative, is that, earlier the budgets used to be from 1st of March, right? Now, there you will see that statistic that for the first 72 hours, cigarettes sales will drop down. Even ITC and everybody knew that. And then after the 5th of that month, it will go back. Because what happens is you sort of get used to the fact, okay, this is what it is, you pay the cost, because the pleasure there is outweighs the cost factor, so to say. And but as incentivization sort of is, okay, if I'm going on I'm going on my way to work, and there is a deposit point, so I can just go deposit, get my $1 back. So incentivization normally works better than penalization in such cases. Is my opinion.
Yeah, they say it
Thanks, sir.
in
Thank you,
human
sir.
resource management also, that instead of punishing, you encourage instead of having punitive measures. So always incentivization is better than punishment. So to say.
Maybe we should do both, because
Yeah.
sometimes we have, if we really used to see this, in 2000, I think 13, 14, the two-wheeler accident rate was really, really high in Tamil Nadu. And, and bringing in that rule, they were able to significantly reduce, I think it is nearly 20% now compared to 2015 death rate till 24. So only because of the government intervention, and where they force people to use the helmet.
Right.
So I think, for example, when you go to Reliance Smart or any Bata showroom or any showroom, now they're saying 5 rupees I will charge for the bag. And most 95% of the time, at least myself, I say, okay, I have my bag with me, or I will just go and take it in my car. So I think maybe it's two ways. I feel. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Skandamoorthy, this is Shankar. Good presentation, and 90% of your thought process are reflecting what I am practicing and what I have in mind.
Right.
Just now, the other gentleman spoke about penalizing plastics. One interesting phrase, I'd like to share to all the people here. What is highly abused is highly consumed. Okay.
Right.
Beginning with plastics and ending with the liquor. Taskback. Highly abused is highly consumed. So this nothing works, incentivizing or penalizing doesn't work. Nothing, but you must have a conscious feeling that it has to be disposed consciously for a better tomorrow. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, point well taken. My thing on incentivization only based on statistics from the German Council of the Chamber of Commerce, who presented this data. Otherwise, I mean, what you say is right. I mean, most important is the culture and the basic attitude that you have to take care of the environment. They're very well taken.
Varatharajan sir, any questions, sir?
Oh, no questions. I really see it's 50 years of association with Skandamoorthy. So every time when I talk to him or listen to him, I always pick something. And so it's from my first year of 1973. So it's 51 years. So this time also it was exactly the same. So though I'm connecting with him after some time. But yeah, it's a very good presentation, very timely also. So because actually, and also I like this news about incentivization versus penalties. These are all some of the concepts which are very highly political. In sense, Europe follows penalization, whereas US follows incentivization. You say income tax rules. I think people like Skandamoorthy should be elevated to a very high level pedestals like Niti Yog and forums like this, so that Gopi, your association, your ability to bring people to this thing should help. Actually, the country should help. Actually, there are no big policies on recycle. There are no policies on any waste management or even carbon greenhouse emissions. So I think as a next step, you should also think about introducing some of the best presentations to the policy makers like Niti Yog, and I know you have very well connectivity in the industry, and you should effectively use and bring up people like there are many. See, I've been listening to some of your these things, and Skando is one who was just today we heard. But this is my 2 cents. I know it's getting late. A lot of people will be rushing. And also, what you should, in my opinion, I picked up on the waste very last because I was always running around the petroleum marketing, licensing of petroleum products. But in the last few years, I'm associated with the waste management and recycle management and circularity and greenhouse emissions. But this is a wonderful field, and I think the world has not done much. There is a lot of scope, and that's where your association with the universities and also especially in NAMLIDE, I think they should get more focused. And see, I know 50 years ago, Mr. Ramalingam used to have some solar panels. And Mr. N.M. Nadarajan used to work on some microbes. But unfortunately, I don't see any paper coming out of Annamala University, from our university about these things. And I don't even see some of the pioneer universities not speaking about this. I happen to be associated with few of them, which are very world-class Indian universities, not at all talking about waste. Okay, everybody get into plastics, but not on LCAs, not on circularity. So I think you should have as your theme and promote speakers and have people like more of Skandus to speak to us. Thank you. Thanks for the good.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Sir, Suresh Kumar, sir, GSK.
Yeah, Skando, very nice presentation, Skando. I even enjoyed it, and I could take some of the inputs from you. And I just want to have only one question. Why textile industry is not going for organic fiber yarns?
Yeah, no. I mean, you're mistaken. Like I don't know if you're there is a particular cotton which is called BCI cotton. Okay.
No, there are a lot of cotton, other than cotton yarns are available. Like you have plantain fiber yarn and palm yarns and other things. Why they are not going in for it? And jute yarn also available. But they are depending only on the cotton products.
See, I mean, you see, when you have 90 million tons from one continent, you can understand the amount of consumption. Okay, the consumption will be at least 700-800 million tons. But you don't have infrastructure to have natural fibers to that level of production. And that is the reason that the synthetic fibers have taken over. And the other reason is that cotton is so prohibitively expensive. 1 kilo of cotton probably costs you 400 rupees.
Yeah. That's why I'm telling you why the alternates are not coming into place.
The reason is because in terms of volume, they don't stand up. Okay. I mean, like let's say, plantain fibers or jute fibers, you may get a few thousand tons, but getting into millions of tons becomes difficult commercially. And that's the reason that these fibers are for, the high level fashion and all that. But for a day-to-day use or for the common man, it's not possible.
Okay, thank you. It was a good session, Skando.
Thanks.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gopi, for
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Anbu, sir, from Singapore. Any questions, sir?
No questions. Good session. Especially textile industry, a lot of things going on in India. Other than this, is there any way the biomimic technology can be used in sustainability? That's just, I want to know some opinion from Mr. Kanda.
I mean, I have very little direct knowledge, but I in some forum I've heard, but I think it's in the very beginning stages. So, I mean, there are a lot of feasibility studies and a lot of, studies going on in terms of acquiring the technology or, understanding the technology. But honestly, my knowledge is pretty limited. I've only been, in one or two conferences where I came across this.
In Singapore, they are increasing the capacity of sea capturing the carbon from the atmosphere. Some system is they are developing with the help of some Netherlands or European companies. They wanted to capture the carbon from the sea, which is already doing it, or increasing the carbon intake by the sea. What type of technology or anything is there in this? Is it a big potential?
It is a big potential by carbon capture happening, and these are plant-based technologies. I mean, like biological technologies. And of that I know one company that is working in the Netherlands, and I think they are using Singapore as their experiment base. And this is a university in Holland, in the Netherlands, that has been sponsored. I mean, yes, sponsored by an industry in the Netherlands to do this project. And I think the Singapore government is also a part of that project. And this is a plant-based technology where they are using biological processes to capture, the carbon dioxide and then break the carbon dioxide into carbon and oxygen and capture carbon.
Sustainability means consuming resources like now ozone depletion was first level of understanding of sustainability, then started with recycling, then started with reducing the waste. Something like the cycle is going on where we are going to be unless we reduce the consumption of plastic material and back to older method of metal containers, it is going to be a long process. It is going to be a long process for sustainability, because one side you are going on producing plastics and using it. Another side you are going on doing the recycling. The sustainability break point is nowhere to reach. Something like that. It is visible. I don't know how, unless recycling rate is much more than the consumption rate, then only the sustainability is going to be successful. How you feel, or your opinion?
No, see, I mean, I will partly agree, but I have a different opinion view in this. As far as when you were saying about, plastic being produced and all that, the sustainability point will come because now what happens is, there is a blatant misuse happening. Now, when the design for circularity, that is when you design a product, it is essential that you design it that it can get recycled. So you build into it a reuse and a recyclability into it. Now I'll give you an example of textiles because that is the biggest problem. The textiles, the Fashion for Good, which is a NGO worldwide, this fashion for circularity is that the fabric that is being produced has to be sustainable, has to be physically in such a way that it can be recycled. That is why they are saying that use of certain azo dyes, use of certain toxic dyes are being avoided. They are saying these cannot happen, and they are going to bring in like a REACH regulation so that these dyes don't get used. Similarly, in dyeing, they are not going to. They don't use water nowadays. There is carbon dioxide dyeing. I don't know if you have. They use fixing rather than dyeing. That is, the carbon dioxide is used so that the dyes get fixed on the fabric. So these are the methods by which circularity will happen, and things will improve. But I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. I don't know, whether we will survive till that happens. But I'm quite sure we are moving in that direction, and that is the right step to do it. And for your question of, that whether we go back to metals or whatever, I'll tell you something. There was a company like Amazon, right? They used to have plastic covers, and then they shifted to cardboard boxes. Nowadays, if you see, you'll get paper covers and all that. You will see that you can go and check up on the Google, and this is based on real studies done. You do an LCA, you will find that paper per se looks very good, but the amount of deforestation that happens, the amount of water that is needed to produce 1 kg of paper versus producing 1 kg of plastic, there is a heaven and earth difference. So for anything that you look at it, if you look at LCA, you'll find that using paper is not as environmentally. It looks environmentally friendly for us, but because we sort of can use it, burn it, drink it, whatever. But it is not really environment friendly if you look at the global, cycle.
Second thing is about the carbon credit. Many companies in the cities are trying to produce normal way of producing it by buying the carbon credit from other people who are selling the carbon credit and trying to incorporate in the systems, and they are getting incentivized or there. But locally, the pollution or sustainability index is not achieved, but they are made up with a carbon credit from other sources. But it is a global cycle. But nobody is going to measure the global impact of this type of carbon credit, how it is going to, because as you said, it is when it is affected to European or US, it has become a global problem. But the carbon credit is another business model where it is not going to be quantified. The result is not going to be quantified. Maybe the application may be quantified. How you how you view this type of carbon credit trading, net carbon trading, when the company which is in India or something like that, where they are going to be benefited, the committee going to be benefited, because I saw one of the friends talking to them. They're telling that they are going to sell the polyester, recycled polyester cloth to many corporate companies. Thereby, they get a carbon credit. They match it because they are already carbon negative. This type of things is going to be a gimmick only, I feel, because the basic problem of carbon negativity is not come out. Only thing is they buy some carbon credit and put it into their system and say that we have saved so much carbon. Is it the result going to be quantified?
I mean, it's a yes and no, I'll tell you. I'll tell you, because if you understand the carbon credit system, the rating system, then you will know that it's, I mean, the perception is very different. I'll give you an example. Let's say, let's take India, for example. Let's say 2024, India says the total carbon credit available is 100. Okay, 10 companies are there. So one gets 20, one gets 10, one gets 5, one gets 8, whatever. So it adds up to 100. So the government says that carbon credit that you have achieved is 100. Now I as a company, let's say, have 10 credits, but I have overused it and I have made it 14. Okay. Now I buy that 4 from someone else so that I keep my level at 10. Okay. So that other company cannot produce up to its, say, 20, if that is the level. It has to produce only 16. Only then that 100 will be there. But what happens, what happens is in 2025, the government says that 100 now is only 90, because 10% reduction every year you have to achieve. So 2025 it becomes 90. So obviously my 10 becomes 9, someone else's 10 will become 9, like that. And so only up to 90. And that is being monitored. Now, I'm not saying there are no loopholes, but the system is getting tougher. The metrics are getting tougher. The metrics are being monitored much better. Then in 2026, that 90 will become 81, like that. So over a period of, say, 10, 15, 20 years, I mean, whatever is that, it will come to such a situation that by force, the credit available is so less that people will have to start using measures to really bring down their environment emissions. And that's how the system works. That's how the system.
No, that's not. That's what I'm telling. That carbon credit buying, whatever carbon, this one, instead of that, if they implement strictly the carbon neutral of each industry, like whatever you do, you capture the carbon locally and get credit. Don't buy the credit from some other country, some other company, and make it yourself, but without doing anything in your carbon neutrality or whatever carbon capturing, also, I mean, wherever the carbon emission. That is going to be more effective in even the 20 years if you compare. Instead of that, all carbon credits are over, then they will start reducing this one. Instead of that, one of my friend is working on cement industry where he wants to capture the carbon emission from this one and do something. That technology maybe actually localized industry reduction in carbon emissions and all, that will be more sustainable than the carbon credit, buying carbon credit from other country without doing anything, just to add up and show that we are carbon neutral or something like that. That is going to be what is that? The circular economy is going to be in the carbon credit only, not with respect to the carbon neutral.
No, I mean, partly I do agree with you. I mean, ideally that would happen. But you see, all governments also have a responsibility that they cannot kill industry. See, I mean, like, otherwise people will, otherwise, the whole ecosystem will fail. I mean, like, you don't find jobs, unemployment will cause some other environmental issues. I mean, I'm speaking this not as a politician but when I happen to be in one of the industries, I mean, in one of the conferences led by the for Secretary of Textiles, government. I mean, one of the points like this came up. I mean, we raised this issue of the government says it will take 15 years, 20 years to get this. That's when she said I mean, personally, I also would like to do that, but the government has a thing that it has to only phase out. It cannot, like, a slum cannot become a palace tomorrow. I mean, that's the example she gave. Okay. I mean, it's not my words, her words. So she says, we have to grow from a slum to some thatched hut, then, some cleanliness, some basic. It's going to take a time. Our patience will run out. But, rationally, that is what will happen, which I think, in all fairness, I agree. But what you say, technically, what I call greenwashing, which I also mentioned in the presentation. Greenwashing does happen. And there is no two opinions on that. I am fully with you that in some cases, greenwashing happens. And I said also, some cases they trade and, loopholes are there. But unfortunately, this is the reality that it is going to take time.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, Raghu, please go on with the question.
Sir?
Raghuram.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Again, a huge thanks, salutes, and thanks to Gopi sir for bringing such a resourceful person to our forum. It was a very, very, eye-opening session. In fact, recently one of my college seniors, who retired from BHEL, got his directorship, and also he got into the environment, ESG thing, and he was advising me to, do a course on that. So it was a little coincidence that we also have a topic to discuss about it. Wonderful. Right. In my own personal way, and I have implemented few things. For example, I'm a vegan since 2011. So it means I totally cut down the consumption of dairy products and a lot of other animal products. And recently, for about last 6 months or so, no organic waste has gone out of my home. I'm doing composting, and I'm taking manure out of it and using it for my home garden and all that, right? And another interesting thing is, we are talking about, so I believe a lot of things we can do at the individual level also.
Absolutely.
So, for example, in my own, like I said, my vegan lifestyle, I'm happy about it. I also create awareness to others. For example, there's a concept virtual water, right? How much water is being consumed? For example, it is said that a four-wheel automobile is the highest consumer of water, virtual water. It takes about 40,000 gallons of water to produce about, one automobile. So we are talking about Chennai becoming Detroit of, India and all that, but we do not know what we are losing. These companies are so smart. Not see the opportunity cost, right? Though, like you rightly said, we cannot, a lot of things we cannot implement overnight. It takes time. Though we are getting a lot of jobs and in prosperity, but we are paying a huge price. We may not realize it today. It is said that, if we go in this rate, right, the India and China, India is likely to lose all our water resources by another 500 years.
Right.
That's the gravity of this issue. Though we are a lot of global manufacturing, we want to attract, whenever I go to Chennai Trade Center on this global investor meet, a lot of them want to come into India, make it their manufacturing base. We want to be the next China and all that. So we are going to pay a huge price, yeah. And so one at the personal level, in fact, we're talking about, stop using the chemical-based dyes in the textile industry. In fact, we humans are using a lot of dyes. Like, we all dye our hair. In fact, in 2009 onwards, I stopped dyeing my hair because somebody told me it can, potentially cause cancer.
Yes.
Out of fear, more than out of fear, I stopped dyeing the hair. Of course, the challenge is, I'm only 50, but people sometimes think you're 60. And sometimes when I play with my 9th standard son, some people say, "Oh, you grandfather and son are playing nicely." So I get all this trolling, But still, I feel, because on the flip side, what I understood is, there's only two possibilities. Either you lose your hair or the hair turns gray.
Yeah.
It's better the hair turns gray than we lose the hair. So with that justification, I continue to not dye my hair. So it's an individual. In fact, recently Sugi Sivam he told openly why he stopped dyeing his hair. Because one of his doctors told one of the persons, he never had any. He was a teetotaler, etc. But still he had a cancer, and the skin doctor attributed to his, long-term usage of dye on his hair.
Oh.
Yeah. So I take this opportunity to create awareness to everyone. It's better we stop. We have to go through the natural process of the body, and shouldn't be worried. Because better to live healthy than put some dye on the hair, and it can cause on top of this sustainability things challenges. We are also damaging our human body. Yeah. And I think it's a wonderful session. Again, thank you so much, sir. Very patiently you kind of answered all the questions, and the session was very, very enlightening for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks
again. Big thanks to Gopi, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.